Theresa May will address Parliament today and is expected to warn EU leaders that she won't be making further concessions until they start talking about what Britain most wants from Brexit negotiations, a trade deal, and not just what the EU wants, a continued flow of British pounds into Brussels' coffers. In the unforgiving House of Commons, her message will have to compete with taunts from the Labour benches, and don't be surprised if she faces one or two ribbit teases. The frog that invaded her throat in such spectacular style is hardly the Prime Minister's greatest problem. And if it reappears, fight it with deep gulps of water, Mrs May, not the delicate sips you deployed last week. But the frog in the Prime Ministerial throat is a small matter compared with the snail running the Treasury. It's not the disloyal Foreign Secretary who deserves a P45 of the kind handed to Mrs May by the party conference prankster last week, but her Chancellor. Philip Hammond may have found a throat lozenge for his next-door neighbour, but there's a lot of competition from his ministerial colleagues. Most typifies the sucking of teeth and can-it-doism that, on front after front, keeps bringing May's government to a spluttering, croaking halt. And I'm not thinking particularly of Britain's still inadequately defined approach to Brexit negotiations, where Hammond and the Treasury have been suffocating influences, forever seeing danger in every possibility and never opportunity. I'm largely thinking of the big reset that so many Britons, especially those from disadvantaged backgrounds, had hoped might emerge from voting Leave in the referendum. His deadening influence on government policy was most evident in last week's much-trailed announcement on Council House building. The drumroll in the tabloid press got many of us excited, but when the rabbit was pulled from the hat, it amounted to just 5,000 more homes a year. Are you serious, Mr. Hammond? There are 230,000 families on Council House waiting lists in London alone, and 1.2 million nationwide. Many of them will be dead if they wait for the government to proceed at Mr. Hammond's pace, and it's not just house building that is dying beneath the Chancellor's funereal fingers. If the South needs more homes, and I simplify here, the North needs better roads and railways. Our nation's finances are now strong enough for much more capital investment, but the man whom Mrs May had planned to sack if the election had gone to plan is the roadblock to the kind of investment that both our economic competitiveness and national unity require. Philip Hammond's Conservative Party conference speech in 60 seconds. Mrs May is wrong to have concluded she's too weak to move against Mr Hammond. He's the key reason why she's weak. Chancellors should be the power supply for governments. Geoffrey Howe gave Mrs Thatcher the abolition of exchange rates and radically lower income taxes. Nigel Lawson, her next Chancellor, designed deregulation of the city and simplification of the tax system. Independence of the Bank of England, announced by Gordon Brown, gave Tony Blair and his government stability. The Treasury and the Cameron government gave David Cameron much lower corporation tax, the Northern powerhouse, and more sensible energy policies. But what has this Chancellor given his Prime Minister? A national insurance reform that produced one of the fastest reverse ferrets of recent times, and, Mr. Hammond has also provided, yes, that lozenge. Some free marketeers will undoubtedly welcome the shaking of the Hammond head at the various cabinet subcommittees at which Mrs May's former chiefs of staff presented ideas for greater state intervention that were more Corbynite than Conservative. I also sympathize, but because of the housing emergency, don't agree with those who think Britain's high level of social housing, when compared with other European nations, should not become higher again. But for a friend of the free market, he's not doing much freeing up of markets either. Whether it's the banking, energy or technology sectors, our economy is much less competitive than it should be. Philip Hammond slaps down Boris Johnson 4 times over Europe. Liberalization, privatization and deregulation haven't become unpopular recently. They were unpopular in Mrs. Thatcher's time, too. Her great insight was that while, on occasions, a speech defending economic liberalism was necessary, the capitalist system, depending as it does on people pursuing their own self-interest, socialists would say selfishness, was never likely to be loved. But voters do love the inventions, jobs and tax revenues that are the social byproducts of entrepreneurial individuals who get up each morning with the aim of becoming wealthier. We are only a third of the way through year 1 of this 5-year parliament, so there's still time for Mrs May to find policies and a chancellor who can unleash the economy's animal spirits and end my talk of frogs, snails and rabbits. And that's the key question. Will she use a reshuffle to promote more radical thinkers to frontline positions? I'm thinking of the likes of Suella Fernandez, Nusrat Ghani, Neil O'Brien, Dominic Raab, Tom Tugendhat and, without question, Jacob Rees-Mogg. Appointing more ministers with a track record of creating wealth to design wealth-creating policies should be May's priority rather than, frustratingly, continued and highly misplaced indulgence of the media's obsession with Boris Johnson. Although the nation's chief diplomat tries the loyalty of even his staunchest supporters with undiplomatic remarks, his recent encouragements to remember why 17,410,742 voted for Brexit should be heeded, not suppressed. The record number of voters for any cause or party in our history wanted change as well as more money for the NHS and control of immigration, which Hammond and May are dragging their feet in delivering. Change, not stability, as you foolishly emphasized in the election, Mrs. May. Either you deliver change or voters will turn to the man who'll sit opposite you in the comments today with his lengthening grin. TikTok. Tim Montgomerie is the editor of the website unheard.com.